Society for Clinical Oncology meeting in Chicago. I'm Donna Warder.
News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters. Ukraine is...
Hey, low water crossing. Stop the car.
Now I'm going to drive right through it.
Oh, not with me, you're not.
In Texas, low water crossings fill up fast. Your vehicle can be swept away in 2 feet of water.
Let's just turn around and go a different way.
And be late for the party? No, I'm driving across it. What are you doing?
I'm getting out.
Wait. Hey, I've got an idea. How about we turn around, go a different way, and be late for the party?
You are so smart.
Turn around. Don't drown. A message from TxDOT.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Where should I begin?
Can we talk about this?
Say, what are you trying to say?
Beyond the usual controversial talk.
Blah, 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 on and on and on.
Over there.
One, two, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself for Craig.
Okay.
Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate, stimulating, hit you right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus, oh God, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
That's right. It is the Craig Collins Show. You got to fade that music down there. For thank you, buddy. You're awesome. This is the Craig Collins Show. KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. My mic might be a little bit too hot, too, by the way. But thank you for being with us. A lot of things out there to talk about. So many things to discuss. And yet one of the biggest conversations has to be Dr. Jill, Dr. Biden, and the things she's been saying to media. Before I play any of this, I want to point this out. Oh, and by the way, Phil is here, the producer. He's in studio. If you call, you'll reach him. Talk to him if you want to get on and talk to me. So be nice to him. But anyway, Dr. Jill, Dr. Biden out there doing things in the world of social media. This didn't have to happen. If Dr. Jill, Dr. Biden, as I like to call her, not a doctor of medicine, a doctor of education, not something that usually you need to add the doctor title to when you talk about her, but darn it, she wants us to. And I feel like they come after you if you don't. So I do it actually more just as sarcasm. But anyway, she could just be
And so we get off, and I know we're going into another event, or we have 2 more to do. And my mind is racing. What do I say to him? What do I say to him? I'm his wife. I've got to lift him up. So we go to the next event, and I'm thinking, what do I say that will lift him up? That is true. I want to say the things that are true. And so I said, you answered every question. My mind's racing.
That's a pretty low bar.
It's a really low bar.
And so
I had
to sort of lift him up. I mean, I'm his wife. I'm not going to get out on the stage there and say, Joe, you really screwed that up. I mean,
why not?
And we have all our support.
Seriously, actually, why not is the way that I'll talk about this at first. If you think that he's okay, which is what she wants us to believe after she thought he had a stroke, her narrative is that she watched him absolutely fall apart on stage for the first time she has ever seen this man struggle to the amount that he struggles. So it's the first time you ever notice something quite this bad. And then your response to that is, he's probably okay. And then you, bring him out other places. You introduce him to crowds. You take him to the Waffle House. And then after all that, you claim that you couldn't possibly have just told the truth. Let's pretend that he were healthy. I just want to play this thought experiment out a little bit since Dr. Biden is continuing to do the media rounds. If your husband were mentally fit and the only time he ever struggled was in that debate, you would be adamant to get him as many places as possible to show this to everyone. Like, you'd be convinced that you had to fight the idea that he had the worst debate in the history of presidential debates with making him more available to the public. But that, of course, didn't happen. And she wasn't so shocked because, of course, she saw it many, many times before. This was not a new thing. This was a failure that most people probably expected to a certain degree, but maybe not as horrible of a degree as it so occurred. I just think everything about this story is fascinating. I can't get around the amazing aspects of how obvious the lying is. Like truthfully, there's no easier demonstration that people are totally and entirely full of absolute crap, like that they've never told you the truth, never have any intention of telling you the truth, now, before, whatever it might be, than in a moment like that. Now, I think there's something else really interesting about this, and there was more, and forgive me if I'm playing this more than once because I missed some of that audio in there for a second, but I want to play this specific aspect of the Craig Melvin, Dr. Biden interview, because a lot of people are surprised that media is suddenly challenging this individual. But after you put out the Democratic autopsy of the failed 2024 presidential campaign of Kamala Harris, who forced Biden into a closet that he couldn't get out of, not that that was probably all that hard, but nonetheless, after that happens, he has to be the bad guy now. You have to do the media tour. The media machine is doing exactly what it's supposed to do again to try to benefit who they think they should be benefiting on the Democratic side of the aisle. They want to torch Biden. They want to torch a man who's probably not long for this world, which is uniquely sort of horrible, but who cares? It is what it is. Biden was a terrible, terrible president. We all know that. And they want to somehow prop up Harris in the process of making Biden look even worse, or anyone else, so that they can win elections. That is the only reason media is challenging her, and the egg on their faces of ignoring this for so long and how embarrassing it was. But most of them refused to apologize. Most of these media outlets pretended as though they got everything right, and they were shocked when it happened. So I really think that that's secondary. The first and most obvious thing going on is the machine is still being the machine and still doing what it thinks it does to benefit just the Democrats that are still going to be politicians and still going to try to run for races like President of the United States. But here we go.
You continue to insist that the president was fine. How do you square thinking that he may have had a stroke with what you were saying in the days and weeks after? How do you square those?
Well, look, Craig, look at it from my point of view. So I'm watching, just like everybody else was, scared to death, like what is going on? He gets off the stage. I see he appears to be okay. He says to me, Jill, I really, in other words, messed up, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, you did.
And you should have told everybody else that he was absolutely terrible and awful and terrible and horrible. All right, we're going to take an early break. The reason we're going to take such an early break is because we do have a guest scheduled. The guest is actually from the news organization that finally told us the identity of the James Tallarico girlfriend. And I thought it was a really fascinating discussion. I actually taped it a little bit earlier, so through the magic of radio, it's going to seem like it's live, but if I'm being candid with you before we take this break, it is not live. I taped it a little bit earlier today, but his name is Tony Ortiz. He is the CEO of a news organization here in town, Current Revolt, I think is what it's called. They've been doing some news stuff since 2020 and are gaining more and more notoriety, more and more exposure. And also, they were the ones who actually told us the identity of the Tallarico girlfriend. Not that they were the only ones who could have done it. One of the more fascinating parts of the interview is that Tony says this was a known secret that after some other stories became public about Ken Paxton, his news organization chose that there's no reason not to do this anymore. And I contend during the conversation there was no reason to cover this up at any point, although I'm glad that it came out if it did at all. You can believe or not believe that she's actually the real girlfriend. I actually asked him that question too. But that coming up in a bit, my interview with the guy who actually broke the story about the identity of the Tallarico girlfriend, who is one of several staff members that apparently he has dated. He's currently dating this one, but apparently he's dated multiple other staff members before, usually something the left's not a huge fan of. But that coming up in a bit. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and prune tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory, my friend for over 40 years. Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Welcome back to the Craig Collins Show. Thrilled to be with you as always here on KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. And actually really thrilled to introduce my next guest for the first time on the show. His name is Tony Ortiz. He's the CEO of Current Revolt. As I read on their website, they describe themselves as the actual newspaper of record here in Texas, which I love a lot. Tony, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Tell me a little bit about what Current Revolt is, what our audience thinks, what our audience should know about that platform before we get into anything else.
Yeah, so Current Revolt, we started about 5 years ago. We are essentially, to keep it short, we're the TMZ of Texas politics. So if you're interested to see the kind of stuff that mainstream media or legacy media won't cover, kind of like the story we're going to talk about, we're the outlet for it. So we're kind of, if you live in Texas and you care about Texas news, we are a must subscribe.
All right. You know what I really love about that description, even though I think to some of our listeners, TMZ might just sound like a Hollywood reporting rag type of thing, is they break a crap ton of stories that no one else breaks. And you seem to be right up that same avenue of, if no one's going to talk about this and we can go get the information, let's go ahead and do it. The reason I wanted to have you on, your organization broke the story of the identity of James Tallarico's girlfriend, which I'm still confused as to whether or not this person is actually dating Tallarico, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But a big story, a big thing. You named her. You put all the information out there. And I'll just tell you before you give me any insight into this story, I loved one of the aspects of the story that you pointed out, that Ken Paxton and whoever it is he might be in a romantic relationship with has been fair game for a whole lot of media. And for some reason, certain media sat on the Tallarico girlfriend identity story. But why don't you give us all the missing pieces? Tell us who she is, anything you want to say about it.
Yeah, so that's essentially my goal my motivation for publishing this. So I do understand, and I generally agree with the idea that families should generally be off limits in political news. They, as Representative Tallarico has said, family didn't sign up for this sort of thing. Though I would argue, if you're choosing to date a politician, you are also kind of opting in to everything that surrounds that. But the mainstream media, legacy media, and leftist media had no problem completely doxing the woman who Ken Paxton is currently engaged with romantically, right? Yeah. They posted her age, they posted her social media information, how many children she has, even where they think that she's living, right? But on the flip side, they decided to protect the Democrat candidate and not publish not even her name. And so I found that to be hypocritical. And so that was kind of my reason for moving forward with publishing her information.
I have to ask you this. How hard was it to find this information out? One of the most curious things about this story, from when Tallarico in a podcast confirms that he has a girlfriend, is how difficult it seemed for a lot of news outlets to know who she is, to find her, to track down any photos of them together. How difficult was it for you to figure out who the person was?
Not difficult at all. In fact, that we'd known about her name and everything about her probably for the last month and a half or so.
Wow.
Kind of sat on it for a little bit just because really kind of again playing with the idea, like, do we publish this? Do we not? And as many legacy media people on Twitter, on X, revealed the other day, many of these press individuals, many of these journalists knew who she was too, and they were all sitting on it as well, which goes to my point with the idea that most media in Texas is left-leaning. They already knew all this stuff. They just chose to protect their ideal candidate, right? Yeah. And so, for us, it was just a matter of just putting it out there and publishing it. And Tallarico did a interview just a couple weeks prior to our publishing with the San Antonio Current, saying that she was a former chief of staff for him. And so from there, it was really easy to nail down who she was.
Sure. Let me ask you this. Do you believe it? Do you think that they are actually in a romantic relationship?
Absolutely. I get the fact and the jokes around the idea that Tallarico is kind of an effeminate man.
That he's
I would
gay.
argue I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
But he is straight, and you can argue, or at least I should say he has dated and been with women. In fact,
sure.
It's kind of starting to break news on social media now that there was additional staffers he was with, not just this one. There's additional female staffers that he had dated. So I know, I understand it makes a good meme and it makes it a good joke, but he has dated women.
Yeah, what's interesting about that too is it doesn't sound terribly woke to date a whole bunch of your staff. I will put that out there. Is it true that they met at a gay club of some kind?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's this social media account run by this goofy guy named Amuse that puts out a lot of fake news and AI regurgitated news, and they did not meet at a gay club. In fact, Tallarico is very honest about how they met, and it just logistically makes sense. They met when she was working on his campaign, or when she was a staffer.
Does she actually have social media that claims that she goes to a gay club all the time to dance the night away? Is that actually an authentic part of her own social media biography?
Yeah. I mean, there's this rather popular gay venue or a woke venue in Austin that many people go to, and she's put out there that she attends it. So okay. It's not a surprise.
Yeah. No, I find that interesting. All right, so let's move on then to something else about this that I think is sort of the most fascinating, and I think the point you're making. And this is an earnest way to ask this question, Tony. How likely was it that if Tallarico continued to rise politically, I don't think he'll actually win this race for Senate, who knows, that you could actually keep a girlfriend a secret at all? Like, how many politicians have relationships, not necessarily, ones that might be hidden for other reasons, but a person that there's no affair, there's no reason for anything else going on. How likely is it that someone would hide a relationship to begin with? It seems like an odd decision, and in the society we're in, an impossible thing to achieve.
Yeah, correct. I mean, you're running for Senate. This was not going to remain a secret. He has to have financial disclosures. The idea that you can keep a girlfriend, and again, the majority of the Austin swamp or even the Austin media knew who this woman was. Right. When I reported it, they all knew. In fact, several of them messaged me privately, and they were like, "Man, if you didn't know, I'm surprised." And again, my response was, "I knew about this. Well, everybody knew about this. It was just kind of struggling with the idea of whether do we publish it or not." So it was never going to remain a secret.
Well, no, and that's the part that I understand the least, not for your organization, but in general, struggling to publish it, because it seems impossible to, and it also seems like the claim that we're doing it to protect someone is sort of ridiculous, and even more so if this person is his rock, as he's described her as being in interviews, and he were to have any level of success, wouldn't she be on a stage somewhere with him? Wouldn't that inevitably be the next step in some sort of long-term, been dating for a few years relationship, or at least in the crowd somewhere, if not, waving at a camera with him? I can't think of a lot of politicians who have a typical relationship, a dating relationship or more than that is completely hidden from public view. It just makes no sense, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, exactly. This is why, the legacy media that's clutching their pearls over, we didn't put it out because we wanted to protect her. It's just a crock of junk. They didn't put it out. They didn't put it out because they preferred Tallarico and they didn't want to cause stress to his campaign because they probably want to be in favor with his campaign. And I look, I get it, but at least be honest, right? Let's be honest here, Yeah. And so that's why. It really is. It's really just so revealing. The media that is upset about this, because the same media that's upset about us putting out who his girlfriend is the same one that doxed where this woman lived, Kim Paxton's romantic partner lived. It's so hypocritical.
Well, and honestly, with what we're seeing from Jill Biden, I know this is not the reason I booked you on the show on talking about some of the aspects that were obvious to so many people about former President Joe Biden, that now she's sort of claiming are true, sort of not. The honesty and authenticity of the individual who's running for office seems like it's more important than ever. The same is true for news organizations. Are you someone that has come to understand, or maybe not because of the way that you approach reporting on things, the amount of skepticism in any news story anywhere that anybody reports on? Most Americans now believe that media has a bias, that a vast majority of it does. So is that something that you guys are uniquely, acutely working to fight, or is that something that you find your own audience doesn't believe about your source? Just, if you don't mind weighing in generally about the state of news media.
Yeah, as far as us, I can speak to myself and my org. We are openly biased. I'm a Republican. I vote right wing. I have never not voted in for the Republican Party or its candidates, right? And we are honest about that on our website. You can actually go and we very much are transparent about the fact that we are a right-leaning news org. The problem is that these mainstream and legacy media outlets, they claim that they're non-biased and that it's just all facts, no bias. And that's just not true. They are generally left-leaning, if not very progressively left-leaning. And they hide under this guise that they're not biased, and I just wish that media would be honest about their leanings, and the whole state would benefit from that, I think.
Amen. I think the whole country would benefit from that. Before I let you go, one last thing I want to ask you: anything that we should be looking out for? Anything you can tease as far as other reporting coming out? I'm definitely going to start following you guys closely after you broke this specific story, or you had the courage, I guess, is the way that we're talking in this interview, to break something that a lot of other people could have also broken. But is there anything on the horizon that we should be somewhat aware of?
Well, like I said earlier, I think what's starting to break now is that media, or at least social media accounts and some other accounts are starting to break the news that there are possibly, I should say, additional women who were staffers of his or staffers in Texas legislator that he also dated. So I think people are now questioning, like, is this a pattern of behavior of Tallarico dating female staffers? And so that's probably the next, I guess, saga to come out of this.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that. Thank you very much to Tony Ortiz. That interview was recorded earlier today, talking about the girlfriend of James Tallarico. I'm going to say this. I didn't say it to him, although I kind of did, but I'll just say it after having him on too. Out of all the people to suddenly be dating him, meaning that most of us didn't actually see it, even if it was an open secret in certain places for a while, someone who's connected to his political campaign does make a lot of sense if it's a lie, if it's fake, if it's a beard, as they call it, for someone who's not actually straight but pretending to be, whatever the terms are. Now, I'm pretty sure that's still the term. This would make sense, and maybe it's the kind of thing that has been going on for a while, air quotes, for whatever reason. But the reporter of the Current says that he's straight and that he's been dating this woman for a while, and potentially what will come out about Tallarico is that he likes to date his staff, which, again, I'll just say it one last time before we take our second break and then come back and do a couple silly things along with a little bit more serious stuff. That is usually the kind of thing that is disqualifying in the world of individual with job and then person below that person, someone who works for them, a subordinate, who winds up having to date or does date a boss. It doesn't matter what the logistics are. By and large, usually the left rejects this idea, gets mad about it, says there is a power dynamic in place. These are their words. You don't have to shoot the messenger on this. That even everybody is consenting adults, not necessarily accurate. They usually get madder. I doubt they'll get mad at Tallarico because, darn it, they love the guy for reasons I don't understand. He is an insane Tallarico guy in a lot of ways. All right, we'll come back in a bit. It's the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
The garage door springs that come standard with most homes don't last. And when they fail, it's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door Doctor. Our springs are the toughest in the industry, backed by our lifetime warranty.
I've been talking for years about Chip Beresford and the Pine Box and saving money during one of life's most difficult times, the death of a loved one. Now, Chip is taking his revolutionary low-price, high-value concept to the service side of funerals and cremations with Beresford Funeral Service. Call Chip at 1-888-PINE-BOX or visit thepinebox.com. Chip not only saves people money on caskets, he now offers affordable funerals and cremations with his own funeral home. The average cost of a simple funeral today can easily exceed $10,000. At Beresford's Funeral Service, families now can save thousands of dollars on funerals and cremations without sacrificing quality or dignity. Haven't you lost enough already? When that time comes, call Chip at 1-888-PINE-BOX or visit thepinebox.com. That's Chip at 1-888-PINE-BOX or visit pinebox.com.
What does it mean to give 100%? It means giving everything you've got, every single day. That's why the V Foundation gives 100% of every dollar donated directly to cancer research. So no matter what you give, we give 100% for life-saving research victories, 100% to making new discoveries that lead to innovative treatments, 100% to groundbreaking cancer research that could one day save someone you love. We know cancer research is working. Over the last 30 years, an estimated 4.5 million lives have been saved thanks to game-changing research breakthroughs. But there is more work to do. That's why the V Foundation gives 100% of every dollar donated directly to cancer research. We will always give 100% to accelerate victory over cancer.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Donate today at v.org.
You know, where we go in life matters, and what we do matters, and we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage. And we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. You know, we live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source. And these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
This is the Craig Collins Show. Waiting for there it is.
Trying to paint him as a moderate because that's the only way that a Democrat could really win in the state of Texas. Can he really be called a moderate with statements like that?
No.
Oh, absolutely not. Especially when somebody he puts on like this air of that he's a Christian. Meanwhile, what he preaches is heresy, is really what it is. And especially when you have a media that is so desperate to try to swing Congress, both the House and the Senate, they need everything that they can, and they're going to try to drag him across the finish line. I believe we talked about this last week. So basically, what we're seeing is the media are not going to be the ones that try to hold him to account for him flipping and flopping. It's going to be outlets like Newsmax and other conservative outlets that are going to need to show the citizens of Texas, hey, this is what's happening, because the media itself is not going to do this.
The left-wing media, but also, admittedly, even some Republicans suggested this week that the president screwed up by getting behind Ken Paxton. Yes, he won the primary, but their claim, I'm not saying I agree with it, but their claim is that the president made it more difficult to beat Tallarico because of Paxton's personal scandals and whatnot, and that Cornyn was a safe bet. Again, I'm not necessarily buying that because Cornyn couldn't even get the Republican nomination.
It's the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. That's a ridiculous thing to say, but a decent question that Newsmax asked of a reporter about what they think is actually going to happen in the world of the Ken Paxton-Tallarico fight. The thing that's going to matter most, and I'm going to play the answer that the talking head gave in just a second, but the thing that's going to matter most is the radical, insane stuff that Tallarico said that the vast amount of Texans cannot agree with. That's all that will matter. It won't be the baggage that people reference about Paxton. It won't be any of that. The only thing that will matter, I believe, and the reason that Paxton will easily win the Senate seat, although you do have to get out and vote. I'm not trying to discourage people listening to the show who want to see Paxton win, but like, that one guy who does that show late at night, later at night than the other shows that are live here on KSEV, said it's not a big deal. I'll go ahead and not vote. Don't do that. Everyone show up. Everyone vote. Don't let them steal it. Don't let them do anything they can to try to somehow win a race they should never, ever win. But nonetheless, I think that these things, these attacks on Tallarico, are so important because of who he is demonstrated to be. And I think that's the reason that the story about his girlfriend's identity went as viral as it did. But here was the answer on Newsmax to that second question.
It's definitely something that we're going to be seeing the media, the liberal media, sort of harp on too. Especially, they're just going to try to dig up all of Paxton's old dirty laundry, whatever that may be, with stuff with his personal life and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're not going to try to put Tallarico under any sort of microscope and stuff in his personal life and his flip-flopping, especially when it comes to how he lives his life, or at least how he claims he lived his life. Like, you showed the image of him eating the turkey leg when he's supposedly a vegan, and that it's immoral to eat meat. Meanwhile, he's like chowing down on that big turkey leg.
And I think that he immediately spit it out after he did that. But yes, that is some of the reactions, some of the discussion points about our Senate race here in Texas that has now finally got to the position that I long wanted it to get to, the position being Tallarico versus anybody else. In this case, Ken Paxton, but really Tallarico versus himself, because I think that's going to be the most significant aspect of this, as we all pay attention to this more and more, is the legitimacy, the reality of the crazy, insane things that Tallarico said that media is trying to hide and avoid, that left-leaning media would, avidly and adamantly tell you, that's the word I was looking for, he doesn't even think it anymore, when some of it is stuff he said like a year ago, 2 years ago. It's amazing how profound the change is when someone runs for a statewide or national office, and usually they're far left, but suddenly they're not. It's incredible the way that works. Other stuff out there that I thought was interesting as far as non-political or political, things go, and then we'll have a little bit of fun. Vanilla Ice is still doing Freedom 250. There are a lot of people who are dropping out of the Freedom 250 show. President Trump went on social media. I think this was either Friday or Saturday. Maybe it even was yesterday. The days bleed together for me. But anyway, he went on social media and said, you know what, I'll just do a rally. If all these singers don't want to be a part of this, I'll go ahead and do a rally. And I guess the reason some of the singers have backed out, according to mainstream media, that you probably shouldn't believe, is they are suddenly surprised that the event might also highlight President Trump, that it won't just highlight the United States of America, 250 years, but the person who's currently in the office, in the White House, who wanted to do this. It might somehow come up. President Trump might be there, whatever it might be. A whole bunch of people are pulling out, supposedly for that reason, because they wouldn't have predicted that a while ago. Vanilla Ice is like, screw it, I'm still doing this thing.
Tell us why you're still planning on performing, even though we've heard that from the president, when so many other performers are deciding not to.
I don't know. I can only speak for myself, and I'm proud to be an American. I was born here, raised here, and this is my country, and I don't like anybody telling me I really can't be proud of it. And this is a huge honor to play the birthday. It's once in a lifetime, 250. So I'm honored, and I just, I respect everybody else. I know there's a lot of tension everywhere. This whole world is like a snow globe, but it shouldn't be that. And music is here to bring people together, man. And, it shouldn't.
How is it this incredible that Vanilla Ice is the voice of reason in all this? Like, I can't believe this, that I'm hearing this guy who's not going to perform any hits that have happened recently, but still going to do a great show, I imagine, and people will enjoy it. Ice Ice Baby will probably go well with that crowd. But nonetheless, like, how is he the only person saying the thing that everybody else should be saying about this? It shouldn't be remotely controversial to play the 250th anniversary of the United States. As far as musicians performing go, who cares if the president's there? This reminds me a lot of the Jackson Dart stuff. That's the New York Giant quarterback who introduced Trump at an event, and then everybody went crazy. And a whole bunch of the left and even apparently some players on the Giants demanded an explanation for this thing that a lot of us can easily identify. We don't all agree with each other. We don't all think the same stuff. We don't all care if you think the person I support is someone. How dare you support that person? We don't care. It doesn't matter. And we can all live our lives separate of trying to force each other to do things. By the way, before I play the last piece of political audio, I do want to say this because I'm about to do my quick four-ish segment, which is ripped off from Dana Lash, The Dana Show. She is now officially a part of our family. Dana's show debuted again on our station. She was, of course, on it for a while, just a few years ago. But she's back, and she's back every day from 2 to 4 o'clock. That is awesome. I think Dana's show is incredible. I think she's an exceptional voice and been an exceptional. I'm not just kissing up because I fill in on her national show whenever they need me to be a fill-in host for them. But I really do think that it's a great, great show, and I'm so happy. I'm not trying to trash the show going out, but I'm so happy that it's Dana Lash and not the show we had. Guy Benson, whoever likes him, whoever thinks he's great, that's fine. There were some takes he would have, and especially the way that he kept crapping all over Ken Paxton, that just made no sense. That's not what caused this. For anyone curious, we didn't suddenly decide to get rid of one show and bring another show back. This has been in the works for months. I've actually been referencing it on the show a little bit for months, and it took a while because she was at another place, and contracts are what they are. I can't say anything else about that. But finally, she's back under our umbrella, and that's awesome. And so listen every day from 2 to 4 o'clock to The Dana Show. You hear Chris X after her, and then me on this show. And actually, I'll say one other thing, and I'm not trying to pick on Chris X for this. I promise I don't intend it to come off this way. But on his show, he was talking about the hosts at this radio station and who says positive things about Ken Paxton and who says negative things. And he referenced the Amigos and Chris Salcedo in his show. And I was like, what about me? What about this guy? When you compare the things that are actually here on this station to the other things. I'm totally kidding as I say that to him. but I was sitting there listening, hoping for a shout out of my own. He shouted me out multiple times on his show. He does that every day. He's very kind. In that moment, didn't add me into the group of people with a take on the Senate race, and I easily believe that Ken Paxton was a much better candidate than John Cornyn. I said it multiple times. I endorsed Paxton on the show after Wesley Hunt wound up not being in the race anymore, even though I was a Wesley Hunt voter. All right, one last piece of audio that I do want to play, and then we'll get to our sillier stuff, our what I call quick four-ish topics that are not at all the news of the day, because darn it, how can you do that all day long? You go crazy. There is to me, and you know what, I'll try to say it the smartest way I can, or the most valuable way I can to you. To me, it's a really big thing happening in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. Maybe that skews my perspective, but there are these ridiculous riots and protests outside of an ICE facility. A guy drove into police officers with a car. Like, it's really showing the extreme attitudes of people, especially connected to this issue, and especially in Democratic-run places where the individuals are being encouraged to do the crazy thing. Now, granted, this isn't getting talked about as much as the things that happened in Minnesota or the things that happen elsewhere. Luckily, no one has been killed by a cop, but I really believe that that's what the left wants. They want someone to do something provocative enough, crazy enough, like literally someone drove a car into police officers and that person wasn't shot and killed. They want this to happen. They want the most dramatic, ridiculous thing to occur because they want to ramp up the drama like they did in Minneapolis or anywhere else. And that's despicable. That's horrible. That's obviously something that we should all condemn. And yet we're watching it play out. We're watching politicians enable something that is bad to get worse because of the potential political benefit of it if it rises to the level where it becomes a national news story for very few specific reasons. Those are the specific things that they're waiting for these. It's almost like the board game Clue. And when you get all the pieces together, you know who did what. They're waiting for those pieces to fall into place. And thank God they're not, so that they can have a very different conversation. And all of this time in which, you know, we've been watching this drama play out and people aren't getting hurt the way that media is kind of cheering them to, or left-leaning media is, they keep just waiting. They keep, you know, not discussing it, or in some cases they're trying to lay the foundation of what I think would be the inevitable narrative. And case in point might be this interview on Morning Joe, where they start to describe ICE detention centers as worse than Japanese internment camps. That's an insane take. That's not even remotely close to true. Tom Homan has been out there inviting media to go to any facility they run to see for themselves how good they are compared to what they're saying about them, and they refuse to do that. They refuse to do that because they know that if they actually do attend those places, they go to those things, it won't be what they want it to be. It'll be something much, much better, and they'll get mad at the fact that it doesn't look the way they want. But here's part of an interview where Morning Joe, and I said others, some of his guests are claiming that ICE detention centers are worse than internment camps during a world war, which is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in a while. But darn it, it's mainstream media. They say ridiculous things all the time.
The stupidity. Yeah. He's saying what we're going to do is we're going to destroy more global commerce. What we're going to do is make flying on airplanes even less safe. What we're going to do is we're going to try to disrupt operations at one of America's most important international airports, all to help what? Hold people that haven't committed crimes inside subhuman conditions in internment camps? So you're talking about 21st century commerce being undermined, all to make a point about like medieval things taking place at internment camps that Americans don't want. You look at Donald Trump's approval ratings. When did they start really collapsing? The war didn't help. But you look at what happened at Minneapolis. You looked at the fact that U.S. citizens were gunned down in American streets.
This
you
is
look at the
insane.
fact that ICE officers...
This is insane. I should interrupt it for a little bit because this is exactly what I'm telling you it is. It's narrative building. It's the version of we want the horrible stuff. We want to then find a way to blame Trump for whatever the horrible stuff is. And if we don't get it, we've got to ratchet up the rhetoric until we eventually get to the point where hopefully somebody does something even crazier and terrible because we've convinced them that they're fighting the devil. So then we can talk about how this causes President Trump to be the devil incarnate a little bit more.
Abused people. ICE officers clearly not trained for the work they were being asked to do and abused that power. And young people, children, being scooped up off the streets when they came home from school and thrown into internment camps, being treated much worse than the Japanese were treated in their internment camps.
Yeah, this is fully insane. And the only reason I wanted to play this is that I wanted to demonstrate to you how this works. And honestly, and here's a hypothesis I have that probably some of you have thought about yourselves. This is probably not new. You choose certain platforms to test out certain narratives. MSNBC, not that big of a thing. Certainly doesn't have that large of an audience now. So Scarborough says something uniquely insane, and he's testing out how much his crazy left-leaning audience that is still there likes the thing he says. And if it works pretty well, they kick it up a notch. And they kick it up a notch, and eventually you'll hear this on an NBC or some other platform, or I guess Colbert will say it whenever he shoots a video of himself on the beach somewhere saying that he's still sad that he lost his job because he's not funny and wasn't making CBS any money, although that's probably not what he'll say. But nonetheless, I can't get over as I see all this kind of play out. And as New Jersey does at times seem pretty bad. Some of the stuff going on outside those ICE detention facilities is bad. And it's uniquely bad because of the craziness of the humans who are out there doing the rioting in the first place. It's not just protesting. When protesting rises to a degree that causes damage to property, damage to humans are getting hurt, all these things, it's something very different than protesting, especially not peaceful protesting. And it's something that for whatever reason, and I think I've laid out some of them for you, mainstream media is hoping for more, not less. All right, we'll do some silly topics before we get out of here. I will say this, where Monday, July 1st, the NBA Finals are coming up. I have definitely been watching basketball recently. The New York Knicks will be playing in the finals for the first time since '99, and they have a chance to win for the first time since the early 70s. The only championships they got were in that period of time. I'm not a lifelong Knicks fan. I'm a lifelong Yankee fan, and for a while I was a Chicago Bulls / Michael Jordan fan, but I've started to like the Knicks more. I will also be honest, I don't really watch a whole lot of the NBA, mostly because it's the most woke of the sports when it comes to wokeness. I mean, they literally write things on the corners of the basketball courts that are like woke phrases. So if you want to escape from politics and arguments and political, discussion or people having to be on one side or another side of an issue, the NBA has made it harder than any other place has to actually do that. But right now it's a lot of fun, and President Trump will be at Game 3 because he's actually really good friends with the guy who owns the Knicks, someone who's given quite a bit of money to President Trump's campaign before, much I think it makes a lot of people mad that it's happened. But James Dolan is a buddy of President Trump, and so he'll be at an NBA Finals game, and I'm sure people will react in all different ways on both sides. There will be people mad that he went that are conservatives because they want us to ignore sports, but darn it, Trump continues to not do that, and I also don't do it. But I just think that's interesting that the finals is coming up. I wonder how many people in Houston are Spurs fans. I'm assuming there's not a lot of them. I'm assuming that a lot of people who like the Rockets aren't going to cheer for another Texas team just because. Victor Wembanyama has looked incredible, especially in that Game 7. I thought he looked really, really great, and he looked so much better than Chet Holmgren looked, which was interesting because the team that the Spurs just beat, the second best player on that team, was supposed to be another fairly tall player that played horrible. He scored like 4 points, didn't shoot the ball in the second half. I know this isn't a sports show, and I know it's not an NBA show. I don't know if Phil watches the NBA and wants to jump in at all on this, but I will say this. whenever they compare certain athletes today to Michael Jordan, the GOAT for me is Michael Jordan. It will always be the GOAT for me. One of the things I don't like is when you wilt. When you come into that final moment, that big game, that giant matchup, or you get to the finals in general, and you fall apart. Nobody's pretending that Chet Holmgren is one of the best players ever to play the game. But his ability to even say he's one of the best players on his team, I think is completely gone in a 4-point Game 7 performance. And so it's just something that I think of beyond that one individual player is how often people swing and miss on the grandest of stages and how rare that was for the it athletes of a generation I grew up watching to do the same thing. People like Jordan became better, Kobe Bryant, better in those moments. And even Kobe's last game he ever played in the NBA, uniquely great. Not so true for some players. LeBron is among them, but nowhere near as bad as some of these other ones. Phil, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in on my NBA discussion at all, but I do think we see this more now than we saw before. Great players not performing in big moments. You're on. I heard you on the air. I don't know if you want it. And then the headphones, they got to be plugged in anywhere over there. No, you can't do it? Okay. All right. We don't know. But Phil might be able to tell me off the air at some point what he thinks of that stuff. I think that that's one of the big reasons that sometimes the athletes don't seem as good now as they seemed before, is that and actually, you know what? I'll just mention this. I'm not even trying to take a stray shot at her because by and large, she's a pretty talented, ridiculous Olympic performer. But Simone Biles, when she dropped out of some events and said it was a mental health thing, I had the take at the time, and I still have the take today, that even if mental health is telling you that you're not prepared for a moment, for some reason, athletes in previous generations forced themselves into those moments anyway, and sometimes they were successful. I think the flu game for Michael Jordan is one example of that, where you think that it's over, you think that maybe you shouldn't be competing, you force yourself into the environment of competing, and the adrenaline, the skills, the training, all those things take over, and suddenly you're as capable as you ever were to perform in that moment. I really thought that Simone should have, even though she said it would have been dangerous and she might have hurt herself, forced herself to compete in the event that she dropped out of in the Olympics. Because to this day, I think that she would have won. I think that had she done it, she would have succeeded where she thought she would fail, where she let the belief that something bad was coming. Now, granted, she'll tell me I'm wrong, and she knows herself probably better than I do. So I get it. I understand it. But I think there's a unique thing in professional athletes, in the best of the best. This is the way I had the take a few years ago. I'm not trying to make it sound rosier than it was, because I think a lot of people just straight up bashed one of the most successful Olympians of all time. I think that the athletes are so well trained that their body can overcome their brain. That they've done it so many times and in so many ways that they're the exception to the rule, where you think, man, I could never do that, and then they do it. I've seen it all the time in the world of baseball, my favorite sport, where a player, a hurt player, a player who shouldn't be in the game, gets a pinch hit at bat and they hit a home run. Like it's the guy who's, ninth out of 9 in the lineup and probably shouldn't even be on the field, and he's the one who wins a game. This happens often. And I think that once you get to the level of professional athlete, your brain and your body are so differently developed in that sense that, like, your body can do some things where your brain doesn't even need to be involved anymore. The rest of us can't do that. I can't, lace up and play a pickup basketball game the way that I think Michael Jordan could as a dude just playing. I think he could just play and his brain could be totally on. Not that it ever was. MJ is, I don't know how people here in Houston feel about Michael Jordan, by the way. You guys won 2 championships in the years when he decided to take a break and play some baseball, at least for more of it. So maybe you're fans here in Houston. I'd love to know, actually, what Houstonians think of MJ. All right, a couple other things that wasn't supposed to be just a sports rant as far as sillier topics go. A man was banned from all Six Flags parks for life after a chicken nugget roller coaster stunt. I do have some audio of this one. I do want to play that real quick.
It was definitely really hard. So I see why Cedar Point reacted the way they did, because I can see why there's safety measures and everything like that. It was hard. I had to try not to choke.
Catch Chris X Radio weekdays at 4, right here on AM 700.
Yeah, make sure that's yeah. Let's turn that off. Hold on. Let me play this audio again. So if you don't know, and this is what I was going to set up for it, a YouTuber says that he's trying to eat chicken nuggets while on a roller coaster, which is funny but stupid because you can definitely kill yourself trying to force yourself to eat food while you're flying around in the air on a roller coaster. Choking hazard. This is why he was banned from Six Flags and Cedar Point, which is not a Six Flags park. But here, let's play.
It was definitely really hard. So I see why Cedar Point reacted the way they did, because I can see why there's safety measures and everything like that. It was hard. I had to try not to choke almost the entire ride. I had no idea Cedar Point even seen the video until I got a message saying I've been banned for life from Cedar Point, which really hurts because I've been going there since I was a little kid. I'm a season pass holder. I'm definitely sad about how it ended up, but I understand why they went the way they did. They don't want a bunch of other people trying to pull off challenges like I do.
They also don't want you doing it. To be honest, it's not just that they don't want other people trying to eat chicken nuggets on a roller coaster. They don't want this one idiot Jamoke to be doing that thing and trying to go viral for doing it. Cedar Point is a amusement park in Ohio that I've been to a bunch of times myself. It's one of the best in the country. It has some of the most ridiculous rides, and you probably shouldn't be eating chicken nuggets while doing it. All right, one last thing. A sports reporter immediately regretted eating Citi Field's chili egg roll. This went viral as well. I do want to play this audio, too. I find a certain toilet humor funny. I know some people find some of this to be juvenile. I can't help it. I'm a 40-year-old man who still finds this amusing.
There is a Skyline chili egg roll in the house. How is it?
Well, since you guys have absolutely no guts whatsoever, and since I'm a team player, I'm going to try it out.
You go!
That's not the world's most ringing endorsement.
I love Skyline. Can I just say that for the record? This is the lowest point in my career. And I've had some low ones.
Ooh. So his review was and oof.
Yeah.
And then he called it the lowest point of his career.
That is exactly what happened. The chili egg roll, not heavily endorsed or recommended by a whole lot of people in media. All right, that's it. That's the whole show. We can play the ID, and then we'll play the news. I'm
You're
out of here.
listening
Thank
to
you so
the
much.